I'm Jay Rogers. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Local Motors, and we're a new mobility company that is changing the way vehicles are designed, built, and manufactured.
What does Local Motors do? Explain it to us.
The first and most important thing we do is we have created and manage a community of vehicle enthusiasts. And that community is made up of designers, engineers, fabricators, and car lovers. And so that's our first job, is to manage that community, and our whole business revolves around it. And then in addition to that, we have the first ever micro-manufacturing facility in Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States, the Southwest. And it is the proof point that a small manufacturing facility can take the ideas from this community and put them into production.
So the people and the users and everybody else who wants to or who can do it can take part in the design of the car and in the development of the car.
That's correct. It's what we consider to be open source automotive. And so basically that means everything that we do is open to the community. We manage the process as it goes through so that we make sure the product is finished and up to a standard. But basically all of the data that we have for the car is shared freely with the community as we start, and then all the way through the life of the car. It never ends. It always continues. And then if you happen to be a customer of the car, you get to come and you take a lot of part in the production of the car itself. So you have your hands on almost every part that goes into the car.
So the customer can actually build his own car when he wants to?
Yes, you have to, in fact. It's absolutely mandatory that you come and you build your car with us.
Wow, that's cool. I know some people who tried really hard to get to sign the body of the car before it was built, but building it yourself is just amazing. I just want to show shortly how the car really looks for those people who haven't seen it yet. So there is the Rally Fighter. Now it's sharp. That's so gorgeous. How did you come up with the idea for Local Motors?
So I was a Marine in Iraq, and I became very interested in the fact that the technology that we saw in vehicles was really not the newest technology that was out there. And I began to ask questions saying, why is it that there could be better technology for vehicles, powertrain, materials, suspension, electronics, everything that goes into a vehicle, including the way we look at the vehicle and how we think about it. And it was curious to me that in code, there was open source code, and in apparel now there was open clothing design where people could take part in the clothing, and small manufacturers who had good ideas could find their products in the market. But with cars, there were only these big car companies who seemed to be moving much slower than the customers wanted. And it occurred to me that it probably wasn't that the companies were run by mean people. It was probably that the actual way in which the company was created made it very difficult for new technology to come to the market quickly. So we created a company and a community that found those ideas and liked to talk about them a lot, and then have a chance to be able to see them put into practice.
And how did you develop the company? How long did it take to develop the company? You said it was really quick.
So the company has been started, it's been going for about 3.5 years now. And so it is a great effort to bring people around a new way of doing automotive. And we think we've been successful to date, but we have so much more that we want to do. And I hope that we'll be building it for 100 years. We do really intend to make a very big mark on the way in which automotive is done. And so we've got a lot of stuff that we want to do in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. How can I imagine the development of the Rally Fighter? How did it start? Did you start completely from scratch, or did you have the first idea and then others kicked in?
Oh, the best part about the Rally Fighter is it was one of the most organic developments we've ever had, we even could have imagined. So it was definitely not our idea. It was the idea of a young man named Sang-ho Kim, and we run competitions, but Sang-ho was not even taking part in a competition. He was posting his work to the site, And it occurred all of a sudden that this design got a lot of attention from the community. And so we looked at it and several other designs, both from competitions and those that were just posted to the site, and said which one is the most attractive to the community. It didn't mean that everyone had to like it. It just meant that there had to be people that did really like that vehicle. And so that's how it came about. And then from there, we started to move it further into development. So we started to ask questions like, the way it was drawn, could it be built? And was it possible? And some of the initial things that he had thought about was, could I make a vehicle that was an off-road vehicle that could have a very high stance, but also could be lower down to the ground if you wanted it to be? And so sort of a dual-purpose off-road Dakar, Baja type vehicle with the ability to be an on-road vehicle too. And that was his initial concept, and that's what we went with. And so that's how it came about.
So it was a really democratic process to get to this design.
Yes, so everything we do, we try to make it as open as possible. Every democracy is managed in one way, and that's not sleight of hand for saying that we made choices, but we do make choices to move things along. For example, you can see on the car we have a very integrated rear end and front end, and there are many arguments that people have during the creation of a car, and if you let it be a complete democracy, you may find that you are looking for a product that isn't consistent. So what you might do is you might make it a complete democracy to choose the overall design, and then what you may do is you may leave the person who had that overall design the ability to choose parts that he thinks would go well with that car, and then you might open up another section to say, let's be democratic about this, and then, so it's a bounce back and forth. What you want to do in the end is find something that came from the community, is loved by the community, maybe hated by a portion of the community, but at least it's consistent. So once you start, then you drive it through.
And how long did the development took of the car, and how long does it take to build it?
So it took us about 18 months to bring the car to market, and it takes about 2 weeks to build it.
That's lightning fast, I would say. Where do you get the parts and all the materials?
So maybe before I answer that question, I would just say that though it took us 18 months to develop it, never is a car finished, and it shouldn't be. We don't like the notion of model years, but the notion that if you find things that are wrong with the car, you talk about them, you find out solutions on how to fix them, you find out new things that you could improve, you find out more, and you fix them. So the development is really never done. And so that's an important part. So just before we go on to the next question, I wanted to make that clear.
So that is like open source products in the software world as well that are constantly under development, and so the self-building is an important part, I think, so that you know your car and that you can build alternations for yourself, for example.
That's exactly right. We want people, part of the reason for self-building, there are many reasons, but one of the biggest ones were if people were part of the process of constructing the car, they are more inclined to be part of the improvement of the car as it goes along. So yes, very much.
And yeah, where do the materials and the parts come from?
So I like to talk about it this way. I say that 90% of the volume of the car is made at Local Motors, but 90% of the parts of the car come from other places. So what that means is we make the body and we make the chassis there, but then when you talk about all of the devices and widgets that go on the car, the community is selecting from many different things that exist between suppliers and automakers to choose the best piece that goes in. And so that's where it works. So suppliers, things that are in the vehicle, we have a BMW fuel system and a General Motors engine and a Mercedes crush system on the front of it, and then a Chrysler side view mirror and a Honda taillight system and a third-party Tier 2X headlight and Tier 2X switches, and it's a whole mashup of many things.
Wow, I just have to switch hands, just a second. No cutting. Yeah, but how do all these parts from these different manufacturers, how do they fit together? That sounds amazing.
So the world of automotive today is a world of many different parts, and we often make the assumption that they won't go together. But what you find is with a little bit of asking and a little bit of trying, that they do, and it's fun to watch that process happen. So for people who are interested in automotive, I think of it as Tetris. Have you ever played Tetris?
Yeah, sure.
So the first couple of lines that you drop in Tetris are the easiest because you're putting pieces and you can kind of put them wherever you want. Then when you only have one piece and one hole, it gets hard. And that's what building a car is like. You can fit many pieces together until you get down to sort of the last piece, and then that's the one that maybe you need to make yourself to make everything fit. And that's a lot like what doing a car is.
What were the hardest pieces to put together?
So depending upon different evolutions in the cars, certainly the body is a piece that you have to have do yourself because it's representative of style and it's representative of the way the car carries itself. So that's an obvious one. But maybe not so obvious would be the offtake from the transmission. So the way in which the end of the transmission meets the drive shaft was something that we needed to do ourselves. And we have a vehicle that has relatively high travel, so the rear wheels go very far up and down. And if you have an offtake that is itself, let's say, a bolting face, then that means if you want to have a joint on the other side of it, you now have to bolt a joint to the bolting face. Whereas if the transmission offtake was a joint already, it saves several inches on the vehicle. So that's an example of needing to save those several inches to make sure that the drive shaft was long enough so that the shorter you make the drive shaft, the more angle it has to go through. The longer you make it to travel the same distance over here, it's less of an angle at the front. So saved a couple of inches, and that was a final Tetris piece that we needed to make.
And speaking of electric cars, are you looking into it? And would you say it's going to be easier to build an electric car than a combustion engine car?
I would say no car is easy to build, or every car is easy to build. They all have the same amount of complexity to them, I think. And so if you trade off the powertrain, then you might get a little bit more in the electronics in terms of complexity. But the thing that's exciting about electric cars is that they're not new. There were electric cars back in 1890, so they've been around for a long time. But they're very much not in the mainstream. But everybody has phones and Walkman and iPods and whatever it is that have batteries that operate what they do. Batteries are not foreign to us in our life. And we have devices that actually move us around. If you play golf, you're in an electric car. If you ride certain elevators, you're on an electric system. And so these are just we're not used to seeing them in our car. And we think we're a great company to demystify the electric car early on. Tesla is an interesting company because they were the first one to put forward a marketable electric vehicle, but they do it like an old car company does. They do it all and then give you the car. For us, we really want to dig in and let people know what are you driving on and how does it work. And in that way, an electric car is easier because it really is a battery and an inverter or a controller that turns it into an alternating current if you choose to use an AC motor, and then a motor. And you often don't even need gears associated with it. And so it's a very simple system to understand. Most of the time the cooling is air-cooled or natural, and so the systems don't get much more complex than that.
I recently read about MakerBots, and that somebody was able to build 80% of a new MakerBot with his MakerBot. So he had this little machine that built another little machine that can build more stuff. Yeah. Could you imagine that someday you can build a car from many, many parts that you built yourself or designed yourself, and that maybe a car manufacturer just sells a recipe or a tutorial or whatever and all the plans and sketches and models, 3D models, so that you can build your car on your own completely in a local motor shop?
You're asking me to predict the future, which is a dangerous thing to do. But here I'll tell you my feeling about it. I see two worlds today, okay? And it's becoming more and more clear to us at Local Motors. There is the world of Apple Computer, which is in many people's design mind, a dominant way of doing business. You have a company now that has laptop computers, they have phones, they have iPads, and they have become almost the predetermined way of bringing a electronic device to market. That's one world. But there is another world that is the Linux world. This is the world of define a standard and let it open so people can work on it. And then let everyone develop accessories to it to be able to bolt it on and be able to use it more and bring the cost down and bring the reliability up. These are two very different worlds. Now they feed off each other. Android would be an example of that second world. But Android came about because the iPhone came out first. We believe very much that you can have a company, let's call it like Android, that comes up with the idea that seeds companies like Apple. And so it can be both directions. And as these two worlds make up the answer to your question, which is there will always be auto companies, in my mind, that will make a product from the top down with their employees, and they will be successful at it, some of them, because they will sharpen that spark that makes someone say, wow, I need to own this fill-in-the-blank brand. And their brand history will be helpful in doing that. For us, we believe about a different world where we could give the instructions, the standards about how to put a vehicle together and empower people who share in that brand to be able to make their own thing possible. This breeds a different kind of consumer. It breeds a consumer that's much more engaged in their product. It breeds a kind of consumer that wants to be different, that wants to be special. And in cars especially, where special cars are usually the purview of rich people, this I think is a real revolution because it says I can have something that everyone's going to look at, but it didn't have to be €1 million to buy. So those are the two worlds I see in the future.
Speaking of the price, shortly, can you say is there a concrete price tag, or does it depend on what you want to have in the car?
So for our first vehicle, we made it very simple. It is a price tag of US dollars. It's $74,900 US to buy, and that is the whole thing: experience, car, and all the things that come in it. And what we like to say is, some people ask, well, can I choose how to make my car when I get there? And the quick answer is no. Once you get there, we have a program which teaches you about the whole car. So we ask you not to make modifications while you're building the car the first time. Because it's part of that standard setting. Yeah. If everyone understands what the standard is, then it's easy for them to change. So your 2 weeks that are there, you're building the standard, and then you can go from there.
So it's easier for you then as well when somebody calls and say, oh, I know something is not working, I've done something wrong, then you know exactly what the standard is, and then you can help the people from remotely.
Yes, and that's a great question. It works in both ways. If you bring someone in and you tell them, oh, like a typical car company is, if you changed it, I'm not going to help you, then what you've just done is you've said, you may have had a good idea, but I don't want to know about it. I am institutionally saying that my warranty process won't let me know about what you do. But we look at it differently. We teach you what the standard is. We want you to make modifications. For example, there's a gentleman who's building his car this March who's going to turn his into an electric rally fighter. Now, we want to know exactly what he does with that rally fighter, because if there are other people who are intrepid enough to have an electric desert racing car, they will want to share in what that is also. So when he came to us and said, this is what I want, we said, great. We'll post a blog about it. We'll talk about what you do. We'd like to put your bill of materials up that you do, and your name will be on it. So if you want to engage in a whole business around electric rally fighters or vehicles that are like it, then you can start a community and you could find the best ideas and you could engage in a business associated with that.
Last question. As you already tried to predict the future a bit, I would like to know, how would you predict the future for Local Motors concretely? Let's say in 2020, where is Local Motors standing then?
So in 2020, Local Motors is going to be a company that will be a design and development ecosystem for automotive enthusiasts. That's where we've started. But what it will also be is it will be a go-to-market path for those people. So it means that they will be able to find not only feedback and tools that they can use to better build their products, but they will be able to bring those products to market right there at Local Motors. So what you'll find is that we will be an ecosystem for passionate people to test out their ideas and grow from 0 to 10,000. And that's a very exciting. Now, if they become multi-billion-dollar corporations, we expect them to say nice things about us, but they won't be in our community anymore. Yeah. And so it's our greatest desire and wish that they do become multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we want to give them the springboard to be able to get there.
Cool, Jay. Thank you very much. I hope I can get over to Phoenix or sometime and try out the Rally Fighter, or maybe someday we have one in Germany. Let's see.
Maybe could I add one more thing? And the one more thing is that there's been a lot of talk about the future of mobility being in the service providing of how you can share vehicles and how you can use the vehicles that are on the street. And many people have used this coming wave, which is a really good wave, have used it to say that the car is dead and that today the iPhone is the future car. And I think that that's unfortunate, because there are many young people out there who need to know about the built environment, but it's been inaccessible to them, whereas a phone is very accessible to them, especially as you can add apps to it and do other things. And so we need to come back to a day where young people actually know how to use their vehicle and to make it better for the world to be able to do things. If we throw up our hands and say the development of the car is dead, then we give up that. And if you go to any living room today in Germany, in Africa, or in the United States, and you look at what a 3-year-old plays with, I guarantee he's playing with a car on the ground as much as he's playing with an iPhone. We need to keep him playing with that car as he grows up.
That is a wonderful final statement. Jay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.